This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Notorious Five, Part 19. When we left off, Angela and Miss Burney had a long overdue conversation about all of the secrets that everyone's been keeping from Miss Burney. And Q gave Angela some sound advice about how she should move forward with Miss Burney's employment at Vibrantly You. Pastor Tanya questioned her first cousin, Pastor Corey, about his friendship with Pastor Kim, and she gave him some pretty good advice. Never brush off your woman when she has concerns about another woman. Meanwhile, True had picked Woody up from the airport, and when they got back to the cabin, they met the caterers who were bringing the food for the family game night. True, an experienced restaurateur, was not pleased. She said, yeah, I'm not eating this. What is this supposed to be? Woody said, I ordered mac and cheese. She said, this looks like it came out of a box. And what are these wings? Woody said, I ordered buffalo and barbecue. True said, and which is which? Even with the slim pickings of the pots and pans in this cabin, I could have did a better job myself. Woody said, it can't be that bad. Then he picked up one of the wings and took a bite. He chewed and didn't swallow. He spit it out and said, what the hell we gonna do, little mama? True thought for a moment and said, I'll make a list, and you drop me off at that shopping center that we passed on the way from the airport, on your way to pick up your mother and sisters. I'll get everything we need, and after you drop them back off here, come back and scoop me. Woody said, bet. Good looking out. Then True held out her hand. Woody said, what? She said, I'm gonna need a rat. Woody said, damn. True said, you paid for this bogus food. You don't think you gonna pay me? Meanwhile, in Dallas, Q just got a phone call from his supervisor at Tico. He's been on family leave. He was able to use Angela's hospitalization to get off from work, so he's not scheduled to return until the following Monday. But his supervisors asked him to come in for a meeting the following day, Friday morning, and he's already prepared for the BS because he has a rotation of PIs following Detective Erickson, and they followed him to his supervisor's office at Tico. So Q figured that Detective Erickson intends to use his employer as a way to communicate with him about Christian. And Q already has a lawyer lined up, and he's already let Ron know to prepare Anya. Meanwhile, at the estate, Stephanie has everything she needs to put her plan in motion. He's ordered a home birth kit and midwifery materials from Canada. She's trying all of the ill-advised home induction techniques one by one, which I will not repeat here because I'm not helping anybody else do anything stupid. The first remedy has her vomiting and pooping. And when her body was done purging everything in her digestive tract, she felt the contractions. She laid down on the bed that she had covered in multiple sheets and a waterproof mattress cover, a heated blanket, and a comforter. Made herself comfortable, or as comfortable as she could get, with her phone and her laptop, and prepared to wait for active labor to ensue. What she wasn't expecting was interruption after interruption. First, it was her computer, alerting her to the fact that Corey was in his hotel room. And when she clicked on the video, she heard Corey's conversation with his cousin Tanya. She was flabbergasted to realize that Corey really did have no clue that Kim was interested in him, and that his brushing her off wasn't to piss her off, which is what she thought. If his conversation with Pastor Tanya was to be believed, Stephanie realized that he didn't have any ulterior motives. But that didn't excuse Pastor Kim, because she had the photo of what was in her suitcase. So even if he wasn't up to no good, she couldn't understand how a federal agent could be that damn dense. While she was listening and watching his interaction with Pastor Tanya, her phone rang. It was Mom Brenda. She sent her the voicemail. Then she got a text message from Mom Brenda that said, answer the phone, or I'm sending somebody down there to check on you. Mom Brenda was upstairs in her suite, and Stephanie was downstairs in the basement apartment that she shared with Pastor Corey. Stephanie texted back, I'm fine. I'm trying to take a nap. Instead of texting back, Mom Brenda called again. Just as Stephanie's last contraction ebbed, she answered the phone in a groggy voice, trying to make it seem real. She said, Mom Brenda, I'm good. Then Mom Brenda said, Girl, you know me and Jesus got a relationship, right? And he's on pretty good speaking terms with your niece. She's at your door. And if you don't let her in, I'm sending Maribel down there with the master key. A little later, Woody picked True up from the shopping center in Denver. She was waiting at the curb with 2 carts full of supplies. She stopped at multiple stores, including the dollar store, Marshall's, the grocery store, and a wholesaler, and got everything from pots, pans, serving dishes, and utensils. All the ingredients she would need to remake the entire meal, and items for breakfast the following morning, because the same caterer who provided dinner for that night had been hired to do breakfast the following day. And she wasn't having none of that. She fired them before they left the cabin. Woody said, "Damn, little mama, no wonder you asked for a rat. You trying to get down in the kitchen." True said, "And you owe me 500 bands. Woody peeled off 5 $100 bills, handed it to her, and then loaded all the bags in the SUV. As they headed back to the cabin, he said, "So there's a little problem." When they arrived back at the cabin, True had her game face on. She went into the house without waiting for Woody, and he was nervous as hell. When he got to the airport to pick up his mother and his sisters, he thought he was doing the surprising because he hadn't told them that he was bringing his girlfriend. Little did he know, his mother, Miss Charlotte, who he told not to spend the entire weekend trying to set him up with strangers, friends of the family who attend with other members of his family, etc., like she'd done every year in the past, had upped the ante. She brought him some sand to the beach, or I should say snow to the mountains. In tow was his one and only love, Tasha, and she was so New York City. Growing up, she wasn't the least bit interested in Lil Dro, as they called him. But at 14, when he got some height on him and he started to grow into his large facial features, he began to put on some weight and some muscle. And had a name on the basketball court and in the streets. She started looking at Big Woody a little different. And Woody was in love. Unfortunately, her interest wasn't piqued enough to spark a long-lasting relationship. Over the years, they'd had flings here and there, and between those flings, she'd had unsuccessful relationships with one thug or another. His mother, Miss Charlotte, and Tasha, however, had a pretty good relationship. No matter what Tasha's relationship status or the circumstances between her and Woody, Miss Charlotte wanted her to be her daughter-in-law. Now, Tasha, a mother of 2, is single. For real this time. And Miss Charlotte had the bright idea to bring her on the trip and play matchmaker. True got as much of the rundown as possible on the 15-minute drive back to the cabin and headed into the house knowing all she needed to know about the players and the plot. She walked right in, her personable, smiling, beautiful self, ready to put in work in the kitchen. She was not at all fazed. She wasn't interested in Woody, but she was absolutely willing to play the part. Once the introductions were made, she looked at him and said, "Babe, once you bring all of those bags in, I need your help in the kitchen. I got an apron for you." Woody said, "What I'm going to do in the kitchen?" True said, "You're going to be my sous chef. You good with that?" Woody said, "I could do that. Just let me know where you want me." True said, "We talking about cooking or something else?" Tasha just rolled her eyes and sucked her teeth. Woody's older sister, Zyla, loving to see conflict, said, "Girl, bye. You ain't bigger than a minute. I know my brother gots to be throwing and flipping you all over the place." Miss Charlotte says, "Zyla, don't be crass. Why would you say something so nasty?" Zyla said, "I'm just saying, Ma. I don't even understand why a man as big as he is even interested in a woman that little." True, recognizing the bait, said, "Oh, don't let my size fool you. I'm all woman, and I holds my own in the bedroom, the kitchen, and the streets." Zyla said, "Oh, she got a mouth on her, don't it? You better holler at her, Lil Dro." True looked at Woody thinking, who the hell is Lil Dro? The following morning, Q headed in the T-Code and straight into his supervisor's office. He strode in like it was a regular day. When he arrived, seated inside was Detective Erickson and a DPD investigator. Q pretended not to know either one of them. When his supervisor made introductions, Q said, I feel like I've seen you gentlemen before. He wanted to force them to acknowledge knowing him so that they couldn't try to force him to acknowledge knowing them. When the DPD officer clarified that they knew each other from the time that Q had been shot, Q said, oh, okay. And then Detective Erickson said, we met. It was a long time ago, though. I was investigating a string of murders connected to the assault of your little sister. Q said, really? There was never a connection between my sister being assaulted and any murders, at least not that I can recall. Detective Erickson said, your recollection is correct, for the most part. We both know that the events were all connected. NYPD just couldn't prove it. Q said, if it wasn't proven, then it wasn't connected. Correct? Detective Erickson laughed and said, I see somebody took my advice and multiplied it by 10. Q said, what do you mean? Detective Erickson asked, you don't remember what I told you the last time we saw each other? Q just stared. And then Detective Erickson said, I told you to stay on the right side of the law. You left town, went to college, got a degree, became a law enforcement officer, got another degree, joined TICO, started your own PI firm, got married, had kids. Q looked at his supervisor and said, why am I here? His supervisor said, well, these detectives wanted to speak with you about a matter. Q said, and you called me in while I was on medical leave to discuss a work matter? His supervisor said, no, they wanted your home information. And we realized when we checked with human resources that the only address we have on file for you is the home that burned down. You never updated your records. Q, not acknowledging the discrepancy in his record, said, so this meeting is not related to my employment at TICO. Detective Erickson said, no, it isn't. Q stood up and grabbed his briefcase. Detective Erickson said, wait a minute, it's in reference to... And before he could finish, Q set his briefcase on the chair that he had just been sitting in, flipped it open, pulled out his slim fold Rolodex, flipped through the cards, pulled one out, and handed it to Detective Erickson. Closed his briefcase and started walking towards the door while saying, you gentlemen, have a great day. I'll see you on Monday. Looking at his supervisor. Supervisor said, wait a minute, Instructor St. James. As a TICO employee, you are required to cooperate with any law enforcement investigation. You said, oh, of course. And like all other citizens, I have the right to have counsel present. Since this meeting isn't work-related, I am affirming my right to counsel. Now, barring any changes, I'll be here on Monday. And having nothing else to say, all three men just stared at his back while he walked out the door. When Q got to the firm, he updated LJ, and LJ said, I know them niggas was pissed. You wasn't never supposed to play the game better than them. You said, I don't know why the hell they thought cornering me at work was going to work out any different for them than it did when they tried to corner me at 16. I ain't talked then, I'm not going to start talking now. LJ said, I can't believe he tried to drop your resume on you to make sure you knew it was real. Q said, come on, man. We used to do that mess all the time when we was in law enforcement. It's supposed to rattle a perp. Only problem is I'm not a damn perp. And even if I were, I'm not easily rattled. Then LJ said, I got a call while you were gone. It was your Uncle Samuel's right-hand man. Apparently, they're only days away from wrapping up their all-out assault on the Ramirez family. We need to hurry up and flush out the men that they have here, poised to strike the Queen Mother. Q said, call Wise. Tell him to execute the plan.